Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The promoter for Anthony Joshua, Eddie Hearn, has followed through on his threat to expose Team Luis Ortiz after Ortiz's management came out publicly saying that Joshua and Hearn had lowballed them for a fight with Luis Ortiz. Later they recanted, saying, look, it wasn't a lowball. If it falls over, then it was our fault. But in these statements from Eddie Hearn that he's made to IFL TV, he breaks it down very clearly what the actual offer was. And I don't think Luis Ortiz's advisor, Jay Jimenez, comes out looking all that good. You may recall he went on to the Boxing Voice talking about they were campaigning for the fight, that they had been playing hardball. It was their promoter, Dade Promotions, that had really sort of messed it up. They were trying to go for $10 million. $5 million, which is what Jimenez said they were offered, was a low ball offer, and actually it wasn't, and that they wanted the fight, and that Luis Ortiz was willing to take the fight, but it had been his management, Dade Promotions, that had been in the way of this fight happening. So as Eddie Hearn tells it, and actually I must note, Jay Jimenez in that interview with the Boxing Voice really put it on Dade Promotions. Jorge Carmenate of Dade Promotions really dropped him in it and basically threw him to the wolves there and said it was basically all his fault, that he wasn't really aware of the offers and such. But the way Eddie Hearn tells it is that most of his contact was with Jay Jimenez, and that he went through the different things that he had sent Jay Jimenez in the days that they were trying to make the fight, getting offers and contact, all that sort of stuff. So Jimenez had said there was a $5 million offer. Well, Hearn says the opening offer to Luis Ortiz was $6 million. And then he said there was some back and forth. And so obviously Jimenez was well aware of what it was. And he came back with a final offer of $7 million. And remember, Jarrell Miller was reportedly getting somewhere between $6.5 and $7 million, somewhere in that ballpark. There was apparently some upside as part of his deal, but roughly the figure that would have been going to Jarrell Miller, Luis Ortiz was offered there or thereabouts. Plus, like Jarrell Miller, who was offered a if you lose, we'll give you some extra fights, some security there, Luis Ortiz was similarly offered a fight if he lost to Anthony Joshua as a bit of a sweetener. Eddie Hearn didn't go through the financials on that. He just said it was for a lot of money. So Luis Ortiz, his team, was offered $7 million here. And then they went out publicly saying that it was a lowball offer, that it was all a gimmick, that Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn, that they weren't being serious, they didn't want to fight with Ortiz, and it was all a gimmick. And clearly some of the recanting was to avoid the situation that I'm now discussing, because obviously $7 million doesn't really feel like a lowball offer. But the innocent party in all of this, even from the stuff that Eddie Hearn was talking about, is through some of the correspondence, because he did read some of it. Luis Ortiz had said, yeah, I want the fight. So his management had well and truly stuffed that up for Luis Ortiz in terms of taking this fight. Ortiz wanted it, and that was, I think, when it was at $6 million. And ultimately, the offer got increased to $7 million, final offer, with a fight to Ortiz if he lost to Joshua that would also pay him another amount of money. So you're probably talking the thick end of about $10 million that has been taken off the table for Luis Ortiz as a result of the ineptitude of his management. Ortiz wanted the fight. He'd publicly stated, he'd take a fight with Anthony Joshua for almost any money. He was ready to fight, according to his trainer, Herman Caicedo. So now Luis Ortiz is going to have to potentially bank on a potential Deontay Wilder rematch, which Eddie Hearn said that he'd been told by Team Ortiz would be later in the year. And obviously Jay Jimenez told the Boxing Voice, the promoter, Dade Promotions, had said that it would be something around what they had been offered. But that old saying of never look a gift horse in the mouth, obviously, Luis Ortiz, he wanted the shot. He's missed out. And there's somewhere around the thick end of $10 million for a Joshua fight, and then one other if he lost. He's lost out on that, but it's the opportunity to fight for 3 belts that is gone. He may get an opportunity to face Deontay Wilder, but Wilder has to keep winning. and it doesn't sound like anything is set in stone, although it looks like the pipeline is a Luis Ortiz rematch for Wilder should he beat Dominic Breazeale on May 18th. But Eddie Hearn has well and truly followed through on this threat to expose Team Ortiz. Some of the rhetoric in public, it just kind of sounded silly at the time, because the whole thing about that they weren't serious, that it was just a gimmick, and that they were trying to get promotion off Luis Ortiz's name, that never sounded credible. Anthony Joshua is a unified champion who's been selling out stadiums, hundreds of thousands of tickets, got 3 belts, way more famous than Luis Ortiz. That statement never sounded credible at all. So Eddie Hearn has actually sort of lifted the lid here, and he has exposed some of Team Ortiz, and I don't think Jimenez comes out looking that good, because he'd tried to minimize his role in all this. But effectively, all the correspondence from Eddie Hearn that he was talking about and going through was him to Jay Jimenez. So Jimenez really has to wear some of this instead of passing the buck to Dade Promotions, Jorge Carmenate, who effectively threw under the bus, well and truly, left him to the wolves in public on the Boxing Voice, saying it was all his fault and effectively he was out of the loop and didn't know what was going on. Where he did know what was going on, and the offer was more than he said, and it was for $7 million. So kiss goodbye to $7 million guaranteed, Luis Ortiz, because of your management. Dear oh dear, what do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.